Welcome everyone to the showdown between the Beastmen, who shall be led by Morkr the Shadowgave and his filthy dreadlocks. And today, guys, we face off against the Dark Elves, who shall be led by Big Mama Marathi, and it looks like she is going to be joined by two Manticores as well as a Death Hag. So certainly a very nasty build. The Manticores, the Terror Routes can be very powerful against Beastmen, and they are pretty tough to bring down for standard Beastmen infantry and things like that. Now, as far as the build goes, it's very much going to be a battlefield control build using a CYGOR and trying to pick apart my opponent's army. So here in the back, we do, of course, have the dreaded Eye of Morsleep. Going to be throwing some boulders, hopefully at those high-value Beastmen units. And on the other side of the battlefield, we do also have a Bray Shaman with the Lore Wild, who is going to be summoning Manticores as well. Not Manticores, excuse me, CYGORs as well. There's going to be two CYGORs bombing into this formation, and there's certainly some good targets. Back here, we do have the Black Guard. We have some Witch Elves as well. Aside from that, Spearmen aren't really the best target, but if we can focus down those elite units, they'll probably at least pay for themselves and, get that bread. So over here, we do also have a Vanguard of some Chaos Warhounds with poison, some Centaurs, and basically you can see, if you look at the build, we've spread out just cheap infantry across the battlefield. So here we have some Ungors here, we have Ungors here, we have some of the Forest here, and basically we're just going to be kind of doing some Reaganomics and trickling those guys in and just trying to kind of target the advance of the Dark Elves, who obviously were really prepared for kind of a grindy infantry fight. So we'll see if it can work out. Two groups of Centaurs with throwing axes, some regular Centaurs as well, and one group with great weapons. So these ones over here are just a shielded variant to hunt down skirmishers, and these ones are here just in case I have to deal with any of these Scourge Hunter chariots or things like that. So that's pretty much it. I do, of course, have Morkr in the back to summon some spawn, so when he eventually does get here, Morkr is going to be able to summon some spawn to block him up. And on top of that, we do also have the Butchers of Kalkengard and the Ungor Spearmen as the last line of defense here in the back line. So for Dov's build, he does, of course, have the Dark Riders. He has the Manticores, and you guys saw the rest of the build. His Dread Spears, he has some Black Guards, some Witch Elves, Manticores, things like that. And I believe he was doing some sort of a challenge to have it not have DLC units. I'm not quite sure, but if he was, he can let you guys know in the comment section below. So let's get the show on the road and have some fun. So first we have a little bit of a skirmishing battle here as Dov does catch my Ungor Spearman herds, but thankfully I did have some Centaurs and Vanguard nearby, and they are going to be able to collapse in, and obviously they're a much better combatant than the standard Dark Riders. Granted, Dov does have a Manticore as well, and the Manticore is going to be able to potentially tear out off some of my forces once their frenzy is gone. Now the CYGOR is getting some nice rock drops here on the Black Guard, so I'm quite happy about that engagement. And here in the front, the other Feral Manticore is going to be jumping into the Ungor Spearman herds. The second CYGOR has been summoned, and you can see the bounce power is falsely inflated. Granted, this battle's going pretty good here. We are able to break off two groups of Dark Riders pretty much entirely. They're not going to be shattered, and we did some okay damage to the Manticore, but Dov did come in with a glorious Soul Stealer and was able to do some really good damage. So at this point, the Centaurs of Throwing Axe is going to be used pretty defensively. I'm just going to be following around Marathi, making sure she can't land, and trying to get some poking fire. As you can see, I fall back right here. And like I said in the front, we're going to be countercharging with Centaurs with Great Weapons, trying to peel off the Dark Riders, Minotaurs, and Spearmen ambushing out of the forest, trying to have pressure coming from multiple angles to keep this very centralized Dark Elf force from advancing on my weaker positions here in the back, where the CYGOR is napping. So the Manticore here is able to break off those Ungor Spearman herds, but my Centaurs and Hounds do come back. The Dark Riders on the far side are pretty much nullified here, but Throwing Axe is going up in the sky, going after Marathi and doing some okay damage, and I basically sacrifice some Ungor Spearman herds against the Witch Elves and these troops here, basically just buying time for my CYGOR to drop some sweet, sweet rock bows here on the Black Guard of Naggarond, who are only down to 39 models. They're certainly taking a bit of a beating. Now the Manticore here in Marathi pressuring my back line, and even though the battle looks pretty good for me, there is a huge false inflation. I do, of course, have the CYGOR summons, and my build is very, very strong in the beginning. I get a lot of skirmishing, I get a lot of poke. I'm summoning some spawn here with Morkr the Shadowgave. The spawn are going to be piling in and feasting on the soul of these Witch Elves. However, once this all disappears, once the CYGORs are gone, once the spawn are gone, it's going to become a very, very even battle as it pertains to the bounce power, in my opinion. So Morkr is tanking right here, fighting this Feral Manticore. Some Throwing Axe support up here on the high ground, getting some nice poke. Marathi did get caught on the ground. I believe she was engaged over here and tried to disengage, and then a bunch of Centaurs with Great Weapons and Minotaurs were able to get a partial surround. Granted, with the Soul Stealer or maybe just some aggressive clicking, she should be able to get away from that. Now the bounce power is still in my favor here, but you can see there's still a lot of Dark Elves coming in. There's a Death Hag, there's Bleak Swords, there's Dread Spears, a lot of dudes just kind of getting ready to crump my back line. So Marathi with the Wand of Koraidon here, nice pop there, does take out a Butcher of Kalkengard. And she is going to get relieved here with the Death Hag and some of these Bleak Swords and Dread Spears coming in to rescue her. So at this point, the Eye of Morsleep needs to hoof it. Quite literally, this bad boy needs to run away because this blob could easily bring him down. So he's going to start running right here. And the other CYGOR on the far side has been summoned, but I didn't give him an attack order right away. So unfortunately, there is going to be quite a bit of time in his summon wasted. Over here you can see the elves were able to push off my hounds and some of the pressure. Here the spawn summons were used. Unfortunately, they were used on some spearmen, and they should be able to finish off these Blackguard and these Spearmen, which is nice. And Warker is just getting his claws dirty over here and doing some decent work against the Dread Spear. So he's pretty good against Chaff units. We also bring in some Hounds to help break this formation, doing some serious damage for sure. Now on the far side, the CYGOR is now throwing its boulders, but this was a nice pick by Dov. He had a very beat up Manticore that was, heavily damaged. And I actually thought it was a summon, so I didn't allocate too many resources to it. But the Brave Shaman of Wild is going to be getting in there, going fisticuffs. But honestly, this Manticore might be able to just win this fight, which is going to be pretty rough. So I pull some spears. I pull in the CYGOR to try and save this guy because he still has devolves or Bray Screams, or I have another spell here that would be useful over the course of this battle. But he's actually able to snipe my Bray Shaman with that beat to hell Manticore. I was really surprised about that. Now the CYGOR comes in, drops a serious rock here, should be able to finish off this Manticore. But that was a great pick. That was the beginning of the game kind of coming back towards the middle. So sorry about that, guys. My phone is being a bit of a trundle, so let me go ahead and turn it off here. Power off, and there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And down you go, buddy. All right, that bad boy's off. Hopefully you guys don't mind that brief interruption. But regardless, the bounce power is now normalizing a little bit because I had to allocate some heavy resources, the Butchers of Kalkengard and my Centaurs, to try and hold back the advance of the Dark Elves here. But the Death Hag and Marathi's kind of debuff auras really made that fight very good for the Dark Elves. So suddenly, guys, we have a very, very close game that could certainly go either way. Some Morker and some Spears are fighting down here, trying to break off these Witch Elves, but the Dark Elves now have a very nice centralized pocket of pursuit. I'm running out of ammo. And a lot of the fact that the bounce of power is even here, or not even, but in my favor, is because I have the Eye of Morsleeve. And the Eye of Morsleeve on the run isn't going to be generating value for me. So right here, we jump in with the Centaurs of Throwing Axes, trying to buy some time, peeling off this Feral Manticore. It looks like Marathi is going to be dropping a Wand of Caridon here, so it's going to be going down on the dreaded Eye of Morsleeve. But the Eye of Morsleeve still able to waddle away, and I do have the Warp Gates that I could potentially get some decent value with. Unfortunately, some of the Throwing Axes are being used on the wrong targets. So now I'm a little bit pinned in by Marathi. She does land on her steed, and honestly, I probably should have charged in right there and attacked her with all these Centaurs, but she lowers the melee attack by so much. I was a little bit apprehensive to take a big blob fight against her, especially when there was a Death Hag and some terror-causing units nearby. But at this point, I think we charge in. It's a little bit of a desperate move, just trying to free up my Eye of Morsleeve. So we charge in for a moment, and at this point, we pull back, and we're just going to be attacking the Dark Riders and these troops over here. Morker and company able to clean up the Dark Elves on this side of the battlefield. So I basically have the Butchers of Kalkengard still healing. I have some Centaurs, I have some Spears, and also some regular Centaurs, which are going to be coming in, getting a nice charge into the back of these. Of course, the brace won't help them because of sword infantry, but we get a nice little amount of shock damage there, take out about 5 or 6 models, and we're going to just keep fighting until our charge bonus wears off, and then we'll pull back here. So for the most part, Eye of Morsleeve got crumped, guys, and the bounce power is dead even now. So a battle in which the bounce power was all the way up here, it's just a testament. When you're facing off against Beastmen, if it looks really bad, it may actually be really bad, but oftentimes it's a false inflation. It's going to be spawn, it's going to be CYGOR summons, all sorts of stuff like that, Manticore summons, you name it. So down here, the Dark Riders are going to be collapsing on the Butchers of Kalkengard, maybe looking to take an engagement with Morker nearby, though. It's a little bit dangerous. Up in the high ground, we are able to isolate some Bleak Swords, but the Death Hag coming in, of course, does cause terror, so she could tear out off my troops there, which would be very, very strong. Now, the bounce power is still slightly in my favor because Marathi was given the Witch's Brew, or the Fury of Cain from the Death Hag, which rampaged her, at which point she unfortunately ran the wrong way and attacked these units. And also, Dop and I both discovered that it lasts a very, very long time here. But nonetheless, the Manticore does come in. They might be able to kind of stabilize here. The melee attack of my Centaurs is nerfed down to 14. And Marathi, this actually could be a bit of a blessing in disguise, perhaps, if she is able to get a Soul Stealer off. Regardless, the Manticore here is pretty close to breaking. I have another group of Centaurs coming in the back, but here comes a Soul Stealer. So I probably should have stayed in and continued to shank Marathi, but at this point I decided to try and split. I saw it at the last second. I was like, oh, let's split in all directions and see if I can avoid it, but unfortunately it does get both of my units there, and he is able to stabilize his Marathi. And honestly, I probably would have gotten terror routed off anyway, so maybe pulling back was the right decision. Over here, Morker is just going to be tanking this force in attrition combat, fighting against the Dark Riders and the Dread Spears and the Bleak Swords. And I accidentally pulled back the Butchers of Kalkengard a little bit too far, but nonetheless, those guys will be coming back in, and Morker is very, very tough to kill. But granted, Marathi with all these forces probably could, but I still have a lot of stuff on the battlefield. My throwing axes are poking at Marathi up in the sky. She's at 937 HP, certainly getting very, very low here in this situation, but Morker going to be going in with his claws, so now we're going to be diving in, going after the Dread Spears, getting a nice little jump right there. So here it comes. Might be able to get a terror out. The Butchers of Kalkengard, if memory serves, do cause terror, so that's going to be quite useful here in the late game, as I have no other elements of terror, really. The one thing I do have going for me in this battle, though, is the fact, of course, I have more troops and more stuff in general, is that I can get a good surround with my mobility, rear charge things, and get those terror routes. But the Death Hag is immune to psychology, and she is no joke. That bonus first infantry will be very, very good against Morker here, especially considering he's pretty lightly armored. He's certainly an ideal target for this type of a unit. So the Butchers are coming back in. Marathi is cackling up in the sky. And the other Manticore is coming back in with 690 HP. A little bit scary for sure. So I'm just kind of watching and waiting to see where this Manticore goes. And it does land over here, trying to get a quick terror out on the Centaurs. But they are able to kind of endure that. And they get a good counter charge. And Centaurs do have a really nice charge bonus. So when they get in there, they are able to punish that Manticore. And it looks like the Manticore probably is going to be breaking. And it's 3 HP right here, negative 39. That bad boy should be shattering at the very least, as the Centaurs do finish it off. So down it goes. So at this point, it's basically Marathi facing off against Morker and the Minotaurs and obviously the other supporting elements. But yeah, it's Marathi and the Death Hag. There are some other troops coming back in. I have some Spears, some Ungor Spearmen, 68 models right there who are going to be going up here trying to intercept the reinforcements. And now we have the fight of fights, the fate of Middle-earth. And my big question at this point is, does Marathi have another Soul Stealer? If she does, that could actually be a game-winning play. If you cast it on the Butchers, for example, or maybe on Morker, the AoE damage would be enough, but that would be really brutal. But regardless, the Death Hag is wavering. It's pretty close. It's got 22 leadership, trying to get my Centaurs around the back to get a rear charge penalty on these guys. And thankfully for me, though, I do have the Butchers of Kalkengard who are giving me a really solid presence here. Morker is able to slap down some of those guys, and the Butchers are able to get some solid HP damage on the Death Hag. In the meantime, the Spear reinforcements here, the Ungor Spearmen, are able to come up here and push off the reinforcing Dark Elf units. But Marathi comes in for a nice charge right there, and she does have anti-large, you know, so she could potentially take out a couple Minotaurs, but the Minotaurs plus Morker the Shadowgave should be able to win this fight. And also the Centaurs have really been MVP since fourth. And that is going to be game. So what an incredibly close game. Very well played to Dov. I mean, it was a tough one initially. He took a huge beating from the initial skirmishing and some of the ambushes and things like that. But he almost came back and won that game. Just a true testament to his play there. So very, very good stuff. But this is a build I've been using for some time against Dark Elves and actually against a lot of different factions. The CYGOR picks things apart while you just harass with throwing axes. You summon a second CYGOR to drop some boulders. It's very, very strong. Granted, you know, a lot of factions have access to powerful summons like Manticore summons and things like that. But I should have known. For some reason, I thought one of those Manticores was summoned, but he had Marathi. But maybe I thought he had like a second caster or something. But yeah, this is a good build for sure, especially considering I'm not sure. Scourge Hunter Chariots would have been pretty good here for sure. I mean, I had some pursuit units in the form of Centaurs of the Grey Opens, but I'm pretty sure he was trying not to use the Scourge Hunters and was trying something a little bit different. So of course, I was very fortunate that that was the case, but yeah, against Scourge Hunters, Centaurs, the throwing axes are pretty good because they can outrun them and they can put steady AP damage on those guys. On top of that, I had a lot of Hounds and Centaurs of the Grey Open, so I was kind of banking on that. I wasn't sure, but yeah, it was fun. It was good. It was a very, very close game in the end. Just absolutely wild stuff. And now, guys, we're going to be jumping over. This is a hot 2-for-1 because Dov and I played 4 games and they're all very fun. So I'm going to be doing 2 videos, each of which will have 2 replays. So well played to him. The Republic of Dave, aka Dog Plays. Check out his YouTube channel if you guys haven't. And now we're going to be jumping on over to the second replay. So we'll see you guys in just a second. All right, my friends, and now we're here with the second game, which is Warriors of Chaos, led by Archaon the Everchosen, facing off against the Lizards, who shall be led by the illustrious Light Slan, the Blueberry Slan, which used to be the Heaven Slans. Things are very confusing over there. Now, if you look at Dov's build, you're probably going to notice something very different compared to what you normally see in this matchup. Oftentimes, Lizardmen and Chaos is just a monster mash. You have Giants, you have Shaggots fighting against Carnosaurs. They just go fisticuffs, they have a good old time, but Dov really just brought something extremely wild that I wasn't expecting, although I should have probably noticed by the chuckling that he had during the army selection when he was kind of laughing as he was picking his army. But I brought an army that was very much traditional for dealing with, you know, a monster mash. We have some Marauders. We're going to be experimenting with Chosen with Grey Opens. We have the Mirror Guard. We have a couple of groups of Trolls who, of course, with Archaon are immune to Psychology if they're nearby with the Crown of Domination. We have a Giant in the back, and we do also have Archaon the Everchosen. Now, it's like, okay, Archaon with Slayer of Kings, Piercing Bolts. Maybe he's going to be really nasty against these single-entity Lizards. And in the back, we have 3 groups of Marauder Horsemen with Throwing Axes, really just banking on a monster fight and maybe facing some Temple Guard. But Dov brought just an absolutely madman build. He has a bunch of Chameleon Skinks, Pot Cohort. Up on the high ground, he does have a couple of groups of the Razordon Hunting Packs, which have been buffed. Better Arcs of Fire, very, very good at picking apart elite infantry like Chosen. And just a ton of Skinks with just Javelins. It's just absolutely crazy, and I was very unprepared for this. I mean, this build is going to be very, very nasty, but we're going to do our best, and maybe we can endure. We're going to try our best. So the Skinks on the far side collapsing on my weak side of the formation. I do have some Marauders here who can potentially screen against these guys, but I don't really have too many pursuit tools. Oftentimes I don't bring too many Hounds against Lizards because I'm like, what am I going to need them for? What, the Carnosaurs are just going to terror out them, but in this case, it would have been quite useful, but I don't even know if it would have been enough. But nonetheless, the Chaos Marauder is going to be scooting up some Trolls, feigning some pressure. But now you can see the Razordon Hunting Pack shooting in, and my Trolls are the ones paying the troll toll. Those trolls are going to be falling back, taking a massive barrage of fire, just getting wasted there. And it looks like a banishment's going to be coming in on the Chosen from the Blueberry Salon, but I should be able to dodge that relatively easily. Some of my forces might accidentally walk into it as I was pushing up my Marauder Horseman, but it's not going to do too much. You can see I am able to pull back. Doesn't kill any models here, doesn't kill any models here. Maybe I'm going to lose one, but for the most part, it's not too bad. Now, realizing the situation, I'm like, I need to close the battle. I need to get some big old fights going. So my Chosen, all my other troops are going to be piling in. We're going to be trying to just monster bash on some of these skinks. So the trolls get in there, and this is, they're happy to do this. These skinks are going to have a bad time, heavily outmatched by the elite Chosen of the Chaos Gods. But I accidentally kind of blob up a little bit. I was a little bit like panicking. I was like, oh god, there's stuff everywhere. Just do it. So up on the high ground, not too many good targets for piercing bolts, but I do drop it here on the Razordon hunting packs, which actually does really good damage. It kills 4 models in each unit. I mean, that was incredibly good value right there. On top of that, a really good net of M-Chop coming down from the Light Salon, able to target my forces. And on the far side, my Marauders, who I was using as a screen, were pretty much just run over by the Hopok cohort. So the cohort able to just melt those guys pretty easily. And now they charge into the Marauder Horsemen. Now this is pretty good, getting a good pick on my skirmishing units. Granted, the skirmishing units aren't going to have too many good targets here, but I do have Chosen with Grey Opens here still fighting, and they may be able to do some hurt here on the Hopok cohort. So my other group of throwing axes is going to be throwing in against a cohort, and I pull back my trolls from the frontline engagement, and I pull them over to engage against the Pohawk oh god, cohort. I need to edit that one out, not sure. But nonetheless, we are able to jump on the cohort. I think I just have to leave that in. That was pretty good. But we jump on the cohort right here, and these guys taking a serious beating for sure. The Chaos Trolls, Archaon Never Chosen, as well as the Chaos Giant, are able to come in there and just really smash the cohort off. So thankfully, I was finally able to get a good engagement, because so far it had just been brutal. I mean, the sheer kite and missile pressure coming in against my very elite force, I just don't really have the width to pressure this type of an army. Now, I still have my Giant, my Chosen and company are still fighting here, but they're just being overrun by the red-crested skinks, who perpetually over the course of the battle have been buffed up by the Baroness Time Warp. So the Baroness Time Warp has made these skinks into little murder machines, which have been able to outclass the Chosen just with their sheer numbers. On top of that, he has a couple skink chiefs with the standard blowpipes, which is going to give him some insane kite. So even if I was able to kind of not have any pressure on the Giant, little skinks alone could probably just hunt me down. Now, if we look around the battlefield, I have some Marauders fighting on the weak side against skink cohorts, just being javelined in the face, not having a great time. I have some Chosen with Grey Opens who've been able to get 101 kills, but mind you, it's just against skink cohorts and red-crested skinks, so it's not like those kills are super impactful. And right here, you can see all the chameleons swarming in with Baroness Time Warp, 45 melee attack, and we're going to be dropping a juicy piercing bolts here, which may make some contact. It does roast a fair amount of those skinks, but the Giant's just being swarmed by chameleons. It's absolute insanity. In the back, the Hopok cohort is able to get swarmed, thankfully, by the Chaos Trolls and the Marauder Horsemen are throwing axes, but for the most part, it's not that great of a pick. And the battle's looking pretty grim bones, as my Giant is just being saturated with fire from the Razordon hunting packs. Archaon here can't really find a home. Obviously, Archaon isn't the most optimal pick here, but with the advent of the piercing bolts, he's certainly a much better pick. But this Giant's just being taken apart. It's just being absolute monster mash. Marauder Horsemen going to be searching out of the forest. I hesitate to call it that here, but it's a little bit of a tree line. And they are going to be jumping in and spanking the cohort of Sotak and some of these red-crested skinks, but honestly, probably still going to lose that battle as well. The Razordon hunting pack's in pretty good shape, but Archaon pushing up to feign some pressure on those guys, just trying to do what I can. And it looks like the big old Blueberry Salon's coming in to do fisticuffs battle, because if he can catch Archaon in open field with the Razordon shooting him, maybe, even him with his little mace that he's wielding in his hand would be in good shape here. So Archaon was going to pop Slayer of Kings, get in there in combat, but alas, he just got netted down, so not really able to get too much value there. Banishment in the back, not really going to do much, but it certainly sends a message to these very beleaguered, tattered Chaos forces. So Archaon just being roasted here, and now the Salon Mage is going to be jumping in with the Aura of Pretzel. Archaon going to be jumping in combat, and I will be dropping a Piercing Bolts on his head as the Giant, just one last push comes in. 156 here, able to get some huge damage against the Salon. So here comes the Piercing Bolts. It's probably going to finish my Giant, but I didn't care at this point. I was like, just end it, just end this. So we get a nice bombardment there, and the Salon taking a lot of damage. Archaon in another life might be able to do some good work against the Salon, but the fact that there's so many skirmishing units, the Razordons are just annihilating Archaon. He's getting blasted. Army losses is going to be taking the day here. Yeah, very, very good play and build. The build was just awesome, and it was a complete hard counter against what I brought. Like I was just trying to counter the Monster Mash, which is typically what you see, right? Sometimes you'll see Dread Saurians and some of the big Carnosaur Lords and things like that, but in this case, I brought like a very elite build, and it just got massacred by the Razordons and the skirmishing, which was great. It was really cool to see that, and it just shows the true power of like mind games, right? Like it's like in the first game you guys saw in this replay. Maybe we'll title this Mind Games. Like a lot of Dark Elf players are going to expect a Beastmen rush, like a Minor rush, things like that. So they'll bring Death Hags, Witch Elves, Blackguard, and if you go super wide and bring like CYGORs and things like that in a kiting-centric build, you're going to be able to probably pick them apart and do some good work. And the same message was really reinforced here. Oftentimes, you just got to mix it up, kind of go against the meta, and you can pull out those crazy victories. And that was a really, really fun match to show you guys. So very well played, job. Thank you for the games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Warriors of Chaos versus Lizardmen showdown. And aside from that, we'll see you guys on the other side. Take care.